The Coleman medal.
The Norm Smith medal.
Brownlow medal
is Jimmy Bartel.
Matthew Lloyd.
Last week we looked at the elimination finals. Tonight we look at the qualifying finals, and 95,000 people, Jim, should cram into the MCG tomorrow night for Collingwood versus Melbourne. They've got two very different styles, and in round 13 it was a King's birthday clash, and Melbourne won at 66 points to 62 in a low-scoring game, and Jim, they squeezed Collingwood for 3.5 quarters.
Yeah, they took the pace out of the game, and you can see here, this first bit along here, they're allowing Collingwood to have the boundary line, but then crowding up the middle of the ground. That takes pace out of the game. They're blocked off the switch, so Collingwood can't get some speed on it. Forces long down the line, and this is where Melbourne lived. They took a lot of intercept marks. Again, they tried to generate the handball, but there's 7 players here in this little box for Melbourne, forcing them to kick long. The corridor is covered off, and then we know Max Gordon comes into play.
Yeah, it forces Collingwood into panic. So Collingwood had been able to play their way right up until round 13 when Melbourne forced them into this. Same as Jimmy just spoke about. They'll give you the boundary kick. They'll give you that, but they're just squeezing and they're not giving you any outlet. And again, they had to kick long down the line in a way that they just couldn't generate scores. So it forced it, as I said, only 60 points they could score. But this is Collingwood at their best. Jimmy, the last 5 or 6 minutes, they got their game going and nearly pinched it.
Yeah, a bit of chaos and control. When the game is in that chaos, it brings this speed and dynamic play for Collingwood into it. Playing on, just make your decision on the move, which doesn't allow Melbourne to get set. You can move the ball off the line and actually forces Melbourne's defence to actually look around for their direct opponent instead of keeping the game in front of them. The short little handball, again, you just keep things on the move and keeps Melbourne guessing.
Yeah, if the game went for another minute or two, I think Collingwood would have won with the game on the outside. And you also notice something in this game with how Bailey Fritsch played Darcy Moore.
Yeah, Darcy Moore coming back off a hamstring. It's going to be a little bit cooler. There is opportunities. He's a fantastic player, Darcy, but you can't just accept that matchup that he's going to dominate. So how can you actually expose it? And Bailey Fritsch here, every one of these balls coming in, he actually starts from behind. He's well off the back there. The ball gets out the back. He hits the scoreboard. He actually uses his starting position on the back shoulder of Darcy Moore and comes up at him, which doesn't allow Darcy to actually really come and launch at it. He's got to quickly first look for Bailey, but he's already got the jump on him. So there's an opportunity, whether it's Fritsch playing deeper or it's McDonald coming to the side, you can be that little lead-up option and keep Darcy Moore busy.
Mason Cox is a polarising figure, but he deserves his selection tonight because he's been in great form as a ruckman the last few weeks. So we see here, rounds 1 to 22, he was in the ruck 52% of the time, but he's now gone in 76% of the time in the last couple of weeks, and his tap work has been fantastic. I think it's been better than Darcy Cameron. So this was some of it where it started. He came on as a sub for the young fella who got knocked out in his debut game, and he changed the game a little bit.
Yeah, and especially against Big Oscar here. He's one of the tallest ruckmen with a long reach in the centre bounce. It actually gives you different options and allows the Collingwood mids and forwards to be proactive. They don't have to lock down on their direct opponent. They can get on the move, and which will allow them to ask some questions of that very good Melbourne midfield.
Tell us about the wings battle.
The wings battle for me, and we highlighted this with Ed Langdon on Errol Goulden. So this is Goulden. Now imagine this is Dacos or side bottom. Langdon will probably try and set the outside. Lockie Hunter's the other one. But you can't imagine this Josh Dacos, go and run through, because he'll cut you apart. His decision making, his ball use will absolutely set Collingwood up. We know side bottom's been doing it for over 300 games, but these two are class acts themselves. They work extremely hard. So I think this battle here will go a long way to deciding the game, because the game will be played slow and grinding at different times, but speed and ball use coming off the wing.
Speaking about deciding the game, I'd love to run down the race with Jack Viney. He's just an inspirational player. He's as tough as they come. He is built for finals football, Jack Viney, and he's been a wonderful finals player when they won the Premiership. There he hits Johnny Noble in this game, round 13. And if I couldn't play with Jack Viney, I'd love to play with Jordan De Goey, because it's his explosiveness which gives Collingwood a chance.
He's a game breaker, and when you see him run these patterns and break through 50, you feel the Collingwood faithful and the MCG just start to lift, and all his teammates come off the back of it. Here he is up near the Toyota logo. The play will continue on, but you watch he'll bob up, breaking through inside forward 50, and the Collingwood Collingwood fans, they just rise as one and they just get the momentum off the back of his play.
I think Melbourne have been in better form the last couple of months, so I'm tipping Melbourne. Who are you going for?
I'm going the Pies. You finish on the top of the ladder. They've got selection squeeze. I'm going to back them in.
All right, the second qualifying final is Brisbane v Port Adelaide, and this record is unbelievable. It's why they're the red-hot favourites. They're 11-0 at the Gabba this year, 40 out of 45 in their last 4 or 5 years. So they're going to be hard to beat. And, Jim, we're going to look at how Port, though, beat them in round one. And it was through their pace, speed, the dynamic. This was Port Adelaide, just obliterated Brisbane. And this is where we thought they're going to be special this year, Port Adelaide. And it was through their power players through the middle of the ground.
Yeah, they got on the outside really quick. And we talk about defence getting set. We know Harris Andrews loves to get set behind the footy. And Brisbane's mature bodies keep the game in front of them. But all this line breaking, and we saw all three of the young mids, Rosie, Butters, Horne-Francis coming up from half forward. If they can get their shoulders looking towards their goal, they are hard to stop.
And they started to lower the eyes, so they didn't bomb the ball into Harris Andrews or Payne. They just lowered their eyes really well, and that's a smart thing to do against them.
Yeah, and Lloyd, it leads to the next point I want to raise is the midfield matchup. And of course, we mentioned the two young superstars for Port Adelaide, Rosie and Butters. But these two guys are pretty tough individuals themselves. You get up Dunkley to support Neil, but he can play a real defensive role at stoppages. And we know Dev Robertson, he's been given a lot of jobs in recent years. These two, who would you use these two on these two, and who would take who?
Butters and Dunkley, I'd let go head to head, and I'd put Robertson to Connor Rosie. I think he's the game breaker, and we've got some goals that he has kicked. You give him an inch, and he'll take a mile. That's how good he is, Connor Rosie.
Yeah, he's the one who's the score involvements, high inside forward 50s. Butters, of course, is a superstar. But you look at this. This is cutting through the opposition. This is hitting the scoreboard with some serious pace. Magnificent finish and polish. I wouldn't be letting him out forward side of the goal too much. And of course, Butters, Dunkley being a bit bigger, he can push him under. You try and keep him facing the other way and quick kicks out of the stoppage.
Lachie Neale is a student of the game. He does not miss anything. And Kane Corn says he was disappointed that Port did not draft him. And so he's played 16 games against Port Adelaide. And this is his record. He's had 29 disposals across 16 games, 6 clearances, 5 score involvements.
You're saying he carries a little bit of a grudge against
he does,
Port?
and Willem Drew has to go to him and be like a second skin.
Yeah, a lot of clubs look at this man and he's very difficult to stop. And I mentioned just before, can you get him facing away from goal? Because if Lachie Neale gets the ball and he releases forward and releases the rest of his Brisbane teammates charging forward, he becomes the most dangerous player on the ground. If you can get him feeding back and force somebody else to beat you, that'd be the way you try and do it. Because you're not going to stop him getting the ball. He'll win it, but it's how he uses it after that.
How do you beat Alir?
You've got to get him deep. And so Collingwood 2 times this year. This is the night game over there at Adelaide Oval. Get him back to the fullback square and get him defending, engaging his direct opponent. McStay does it really well here. Whoever that is for Brisbane. Every time you get Alir, let's go back to the cage because we need you as far away from the contest as possible. When he gets up off the back of 50 and intercepts the ball or big spoils, Port Adelaide can defend really well. You've got to make him do all the defending really deep. He's
only played 2 years of footy, but I put him on a high pedestal, Jason Horne-Francis. But this is his chart. So I'm saying if you're a midfielder, you should be getting at least 20 disposals in this game because they don't play on each other very often. But Jason Horne-Francis in 22 games has had 7 games where he's gone over the 20 disposal mark, and only 2 of his last 11 he's gone over 20 disposals. So I think as good as he is, he drifts in and out of games too much. And if they're to win a flag, he has to be one of the best players through the final series.
So would you start him in the centre bounce to get him going?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Play him in there, and he can't be a highlights reel through this. And he's only young still, but I think he's capable of anything through this final series if he can stay in the game for longer.
Port Adelaide or Brisbane for you?
Brisbane.
Yeah, I'm going to go the Lions up at the Gabba.
And Brisbane by about 5 goals.